Welcome to the Neo Trend, bringing you the latest news from around the world. On July 28, 2025, the world awoke to the unthinkable. The Panama Canal was closed. The order came from Washington, D.C., after a catastrophic event at the canal's Pacific entrance. Early reports described a sophisticated, coordinated attack. Global supply chains ground to a halt. Financial markets in London, Tokyo, and New York plunged. The flow of goods that sustains modern life was severed at its most critical point. Shipping companies scrambled to reroute vessels now forced into long, costly detours around Cape Horn. The world was forced to confront its dependence on this single, 82-kilometer stretch of water. Hundreds of ship crews were stranded, caught in a crisis beyond their control. The intricate dance of global logistics had come to a jarring halt. The world held its breath, waiting to understand the full scope of the crisis. The path between the seas was blocked, and no one knew when it would open again. The Panama Canal is a monument to human ambition and ingenuity. For centuries, explorers dreamed of a waterway connecting the Atlantic and Pacific, avoiding the perilous Cape Horn. The French tried first in the 1880s, but disease and mismanagement doomed the effort. Over 20,000 lives were lost, and the dream seemed buried in the isthmus mud. The United States took up the challenge, seeing the canal as vital for commerce and military power. Dr. William Gorgas fought disease while engineers designed a system of locks and an artificial lake. Construction was relentless. Over 200 million cubic yards of earth moved, mountains blasted, and Gatun Lake created. In 1914, the SS Ancon made the first official transit, launching a new era in global navigation. The canal cut the New York-San Francisco journey by nearly 8,000 miles, reshaping global trade. On December 31, 1999, Panama assumed full control, proving itself a capable steward. The canal's story is one of triumph, tragedy, and transformation. Its closure in 2025 was a reminder: even the greatest feats of engineering are vulnerable. Its history is a warning, and a challenge for the future. After Panama took control in 1999, the canal faced a new challenge. Ships were getting bigger, and global trade was booming. The original locks couldn't handle the new generation of massive container ships. To stay relevant, the Panama Canal Authority launched a bold expansion in 2007, building a third set of much larger locks. The $5.25 billion project opened in 2016, tripling the canal's capacity, and allowing passage for ships carrying up to 14,000 containers. By 2024, these Neo-Panamax locks handled over half the canal's tonnage, solidifying its role in global trade, especially between Asia and the U.S. East Coast. The canal became a vital link in the global energy supply chain, with LNG tankers from the U.S. Gulf Coast now regular traffic. Panama's economy flourished, but new vulnerabilities emerged. The expanded locks required immense amounts of fresh water, making the canal more susceptible to droughts. In 2023 and 2024, low water levels forced transit restrictions, exposing the canal's dependence on a fragile ecosystem. The canal's strategic importance also made it a bigger target. Its smooth operation was taken for granted until disaster struck. The world's reliance on the canal had never been greater, but with that reliance came risk. Any disruption would have consequences far beyond Panama. The canal's success paradoxically increased the danger it posed to the world economy. The events of 2025 proved just how high the stakes had become. The canal's evolution was a triumph, but also a warning. The world would soon pay the price for its dependence. The July 28th attack was a masterclass in modern sabotage. Underwater drones crippled the Kokoli locks, twisting steel gates beyond repair. Simultaneously, a cyber attack disabled the control tower, paralyzing operations. The attackers targeted Gatun Lake, releasing a biological agent that triggered a catastrophic toxic bloom. The water became unusable for the locks and hazardous to the environment. A disinformation campaign flooded social media, sowing confusion and panic worldwide. Governments struggled to identify the true culprits as global markets reeled. The Panama Canal Authority and Panamanian security forces sealed off the canal zone. U.S. military assets deployed under treaty obligations, but the damage was done. The Kokoli locks would take months, if not years, to rebuild. Restoring Gatun Lake's ecosystem could take even longer. The world's most important waterway was rendered inoperable by a sophisticated unknown enemy. The attack shattered confidence in the security of global infrastructure. The crisis had only just begun. In the tense aftermath, the world looked to Panama City and Washington, D.C. The 1977 treaties gave the U.S. the right to defend the canal against threats. On July 29, the U.S. invoked this clause, announcing joint, temporary control of canal security. The move was framed as a partnership, but its implications were clear. The U.S. was back in the canal zone. U.S. military established a perimeter, Navy ships patrolled both coasts, and the canal was formally closed to all traffic. The closure was absolute, a legal and diplomatic signal to the world's shipping lines. International reaction was mixed. Allies supported the move, but China and Russia condemned it as a power grab. Latin American neighbors watched nervously, wary of renewed U.S. interventionism. The Panamanian government cooperated but faced internal pressure. The U.S. acted within its rights, but the balance of power in the hemisphere shifted overnight. The canal's closure was now official, enforced by its ultimate guarantor. The world's most vital trade route was locked down, with no end in sight. The crisis set the stage for a new era of geopolitical tension. The rules of global trade had changed in an instant. The world would have to adapt, or face the consequences. The canal's fate was now a matter of international power. The economic shock was immediate and brutal. Shipping costs soared as vessels rerouted around South America, adding weeks and hundreds of thousands in fuel costs. Ports on the U.S. East and Gulf coasts fell silent, while West Coast ports were overwhelmed by rerouted ships. The logistics network buckled. Delays, shortages, and furloughs rippled across industries. Prices of everyday goods climbed. Electronics, fruit, coffee, and cars all became more expensive. The automotive industry, reliant on global parts, was hit especially hard. U.S. exports suffered. Farmers and LNG suppliers lost access to Asian markets. The crisis exposed the fragility of just-in-time supply chains. Companies had built efficiency on the assumption of flawless operation at choke points like the canal. The attack revealed this as a critical flaw. The world economy was more fragile than anyone realized. The closure forced a painful reckoning. Resilience, not just efficiency, was now essential. The lesson would cost trillions. The canal's closure and U.S. intervention sent shockwaves through global geopolitics. Tensions soared between the U.S., China, and Russia. China condemned the American military presence, accusing Washington of using the crisis to contain its influence. Russia joined in, blocking UN support for the US-led operation. The crisis became a new front in great power competition. US allies faced tough choices, balancing security guarantees with economic ties to China. European nations called for a multinational response, but unity was elusive. The world's reliance on a single choke point was exposed as a strategic vulnerability. Russia promoted its Arctic route. China accelerated Belt and Road investments. Central America revisited rival canal proposals. The Panama Canal's closure redrew the map of global trade and influence. The world began building redundancy, seeking security in a new era of uncertainty. The attack triggered an environmental catastrophe. Gatun Lake, a vital water source and ecosystem, was poisoned by a toxic bloom. Water treatment plants shut down, leaving hundreds of thousands without clean water. The lake's biodiversity was devastated. Fish died, birds and mammals lost their habitat. Scientists warned the ecosystem might never fully recover. The attack was eco-terrorism on an unprecedented scale. Rerouted shipping burned more fuel, adding millions of tons of CO2 to the atmosphere. The crisis accelerated climate change, compounding the disaster. Cleanup required international teams and billions of dollars. The attack proved that modern conflict could inflict deep wounds on the natural world. The environmental cost would haunt Panama and the planet for years. In the months after the canal's closure, the world adapted to a new reality. Economic pain persisted, supply chains remained disrupted, and geopolitical tensions simmered. The environmental cleanup of Gatun Lake began, but recovery would take years. The crisis forced a rethinking of global logistics. Efficiency gave way to resilience. Alternative trade routes became strategic imperatives. Infrastructure security became a top priority, blending military, cyber, and civilian defenses. The cost of protecting our interconnected world soared. The canal's closure was a stark symbol of global vulnerability. Even when ships sail again, the world they connect will be forever changed. The ultimate question: can we build a system that is not just efficient, but secure, resilient, and sustainable enough for the shocks of the 21st century?